Hello again, my meddling Scooby Doo fans, and welcome back to another video covering the world of Scooby Doo. Now today I have something a little bit different for you guys than my normal review type videos. So, you guys might have noticed that in a recent community post, I asked you guys if you guys would be interested in me tackling future Scooby Doo projects like Go-Go Mystery Machine and Scooby Doo Origins, the live-action Netflix series, which are the two new shows on the horizon, as well as any other future Scooby Doo projects that may come up. And I also asked you guys if you would be interested in me giving my initial thoughts on these shows when they come out, you know, their specific episodes when they're released. And you guys seem to be in favor of that, and you answered with a resounding yes. And while I don't have anything in particular to cover in terms of Go-Go Mystery Machine, as there's not really been anything new yet that's been released about it, no sort of news or any trailers or anything. Scooby Doo Origins, the Netflix live-action series, I do have something to cover, and that is that the full cast has been confirmed, and we have gotten a little information on, you know, what the series, you know, a little bit of a snippet of what the series could be about, and how long it may, you know, take to film and be in production, and when we, and you know, kind of what I might think the possible release date could be. Now, while we did know who Daphne and Scooby's, you know, actress and voice actor was going to be, we hadn't yet known what Fred, Velma, and Shaggy's actors and actress were going to be. But now we have the full cast confirmed, and so in today's video, I'm essentially going to talk about the cast themselves, give my opinion, kind of, you know, how familiar I am with them as actors and actresses, and what I think they could do to essentially be as good as they could possibly be in the roles that they're playing. I'm also going to go over the short bit of synopsis of plot that we've gotten so far, and what I think of it, and what I think it might mean. And I also am going to go over, you know, how long they're going to be filming, and what, you know, what time frame we could possibly expect a release for this particular Netflix live-action series. So let's dive in and let's, you know, talk about this news regarding Scooby Doo Origins, the Netflix live-action series. So here's the main cast that has been confirmed for Scooby Doo Origins, the Netflix live-action series. For the role of Fred, Maxwell Jenkins has been cast as Fred. For Daphne, McKenna Grace has been cast as Daphne. For the role of Velma, Abby Ryder Fortson has been cast as Velma. And for the role of Shaggy, Tanner Hagen has been cast as the role of Shaggy, and Frank Welker is going to be voicing Scooby-Doo. There's also another actor named Paul Walter Hauser. Now, it's not known what role he's going to play, but there is speculation that he might possibly be playing Scooby's old owner, which is a potential recurring role in the series, a regular character in the series that we will see. If that is the case, he will definitely be someone to, you know, look out towards. But it's not, you know, confirmed what his role will be, and if he is playing Scooby-Doo's owner, you know, how, like, what role he's going to be in the show. So before I get into the main cast and my thoughts on them, I'll just quickly say that my source of information is ScoobySnacks.com. They're the most reliable website in terms of Scooby-Doo news. I will leave a link in the description if you guys want to read the article for yourself and kind of, you know, give your own thoughts. And, you know, want to check out any other Scooby-Doo news. This is definitely the most reliable source of information. I'm just going to take what they have, you know, what information they've given us, what's been confirmed, what, you know, we could take with a grain of salt, and what, you know, isn't really confirmed yet. So let's talk about each individual cast member and, you know, how experienced I am with them and what I think they could do to essentially do a good job in the role. So first up on the docket, let's talk about Maxwell Jenkins, who's been casted in the role of Fred. Now, I'm not too familiar with Maxwell Jenkins' filmography. He's been acting since 2013. The one role I do remember him playing is a young Jack Reacher in the Jack Reacher television series in 2022. He did a decent enough job in it. It's been a while since I've watched the Jack Reacher series. I watched, like, the first 2 seasons. Kind of tuned out a little bit midway into season 3. Haven't really gone back since. But from what I remember, he did a pretty decent job in that role. So as far as what he needs to do to essentially capture the role of Fred, I think the first thing is he obviously has brown hair. He has dark brown hair. So I'm hoping that they will have him either be dyed blonde in some capacity, or he'll wear a blonde wig. Blonde hair is one of Freddy's essential, physical attributes. Like, we saw how in The Mystery Begins, how Robbie Amell without blonde hair looked not that amazing. Like, he did a decent enough job in the role, but not having that blonde hair, kind of was a bit distracting and made it harder to believe that he was playing the role of Fred. So I'm hoping that for Maxwell Jenkins, that he will either be willing to dye his hair blonde, or he will, wear a blonde wig. I'm not sure of his physique, but I'm hoping that he has, like, a pretty, big physique like Fred does. As far as Fred's characteristics are concerned, my main thing is he going to show leadership in the series? Is he going to act like a proper leader in the series? I hope so, because Fred in a lot of the modern series has been kind of treated as a dumbass. He's been treated like an idiot. So, for this series, I'm hoping that they'll treat him like a smart, calm, cool, collected leader. So, hopefully Maxwell Jenkins will portray Fred in that capacity, where he will be playing Fred in kind of like a leadership role, and maybe he could be a little bit funny. I don't mind if Fred's a little bit funny, or is a little bit of a goofball. But I'm hoping that he will still have, still be as smart as he is in the original, Hanna-Barbera series, and, kind of be like calm, cool, and collected, and that's why he's naturally a leader. Like, it's not like a manly thing, like, he's the macho, like, guy, so naturally he's got to be the leader. No, like, Fred's naturally a leader because of his personality and how cool, calm, and collected he is compared to the rest of the gang, and how he doesn't easily get scared. And he kind of, thinks through things and, tells everyone where they need to go and what to do next. So hopefully his leadership will be shown in full display for Fred. And hopefully, Maxwell Jenkins will showcase his leadership, have the right physique with, kind of like a big muscly build, and, kind of have the blonde hair, whether that's dyed or whether he has a blonde wig. And hopefully he will actually be smart and not a dumbass in the series. I'm also hoping that they'll showcase Fred's traps as well, but not in an addiction sort of way. I don't want it like Mystery Incorporated level, where Fred is like, where it's mental illness level, where he's obsessed with traps. I'd rather it be something that he's good at, but not obsessed with. So, and he also has Frank Welker as well in the cast. Now, I don't know if Frank's going to be meeting the cast, because he's going to be voicing Scooby. So, I don't know if he's going to be doing his, voice work beforehand, before they get on set, or afterwards, or if he'll be on set with them. But if I was Maxwell Jenkins, if I do have access to Frank Welker, if I have a chance to meet the guy, I would probably ask him, what he thinks, like, Fred's characteristics are, so Frank can kind of explain it to him, and maybe he can learn from Frank on what essential traits, he can, hone in on for Fred. And if he doesn't have access to Frank, then, just go back to, like, the original cartoons, get a sense of what Fred's like in the classic cartoons, and then kind of make that into your own style, but still showcase that it's still classic Freddy. Because it would be something new and fresh. Like, we've had Fred be a dumbass for a while and be the butt of jokes. So it'd be nice if Maxwell Jenkins can portray Fred in kind of a more classic way. So whether he'll have access, to Frank Welker and he'll be able to talk to him, or whether he won't be, I'm not too sure. I'm really hoping that Frank Welker is with the cast. I think that'd be really cool, or at least, gets to meet them, because I definitely think for Maxwell Jenkins, he should totally, talk to Frank Welker about the role. Like, because Frank, he's been doing it since the original series. He knows the character inside and out. If there's anybody he can get pros and tips on this character, it's Frank. And so this is a golden opportunity for him. Unlike his other castmates who kind of have to go based off of different performances from the past and kind of mold it into their own, Maxwell Jenkins really only has to feel like Frank Welker's version just in live action. And he has Frank Welker there. So all he's got to do is just, kind of approach him and kind of get an idea of what, Fred is. Like, get the bare bones, like, core characteristics of Fred's character. So that's what I would recommend Maxwell Jenkins do. Kind of like, just make sure you have the look of Fred. Make sure you prioritize his leadership, him being a smart, cool, calm, collected leader. Don't have him be like an asshole or a dummy. Have him be smart, cool, calm, and collected, and showcase why that makes him a good leader. Have the right physique, and either talk to Frank Welker about the role, get an idea of the role of Fred, or try to go back to the original series and see what Frank did with that character. And get it, and then, say, okay, how can I, make this into my own, but still make it feel like classic Freddy? How can I make it feel like I'm actually playing the character of Fred, but in my own way? So that's what I think of Maxwell Jenkins. Next up on the list is McKenna Grace in the role of Daphne Blake. So McKenna Grace was actually the first one to be announced, and she's no stranger to Scooby Doo. She actually played young Daphne in Scoob, and while I haven't watched Scoob in a little while, she did a pretty decent job as young Daphne, and she probably would have been able to show off more of that had the Scoob prequel came to fruition. Unfortunately, Warner Brothers, scrapped that before she had a chance to. I'm also familiar with her in, Annabelle 3, Captain Marvel. I've seen her in Batman the Cape Crusader, the recent, show, the recent Batman show that was, released. She was also recently in Scream 7, for any of you horror fanatics. If you guys are Ghostbusters fans, she was in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So she's a pretty big actress. She's actually gotten a lot of big roles as of late. She's been acting since 2012. And I think she doesn't have to really do much to really capture Daphne. She's already got experience with it. She's got the look down, so I don't think there's really much I have to say in terms of her physique. I think all she has to really do is just dye her hair red because she's now naturally blonde. So all she's got to do is just make her head a little bit red. But otherwise, she's got the Daphne persona down. I feel like she can capture Daphne pretty well in terms of looks. In terms of Daphne's personality, though, I would say, like, for her, Daphne's a bit of a wild card in terms of a character. She can kind of do a little bit of everything. She can kind of be a leader, like in the Scrappy Doo era. She could sometimes help piece together the clues to help solve the mystery here and there, or find major clues. She can also be cowardly and comedic like Shaggy and Scooby. But I would say at the core, the main thing for Daphne is that she just has to be, the heart of Mystery Inc. The kind, compassionate, caring heart of, the gang that, is this bubbly, bright, girly girl who's, the heart and center of the gang, who, cares about all of them, but could do a little bit of everything. She could be with Fred and Velma and kind of help piece things together and could be a bit of a leader and step up if she needs to. But she can also showcase her, fearful side and be like Shaggy and Scooby and be a little bit more scared. So for Daphne, I guess I would just like for her to kind of showcase all of that. But yeah, I would say, like, if I were to give her like one actress, from Daphne's history to kind of gauge from, a race of Daphne would obviously be Grey Delisle, but I think Heather North would be the more preferable one if she really wants to get in, kind of learn more about Daphne, because Heather really understood the role of Daphne and really was the quintessential Daphne, for at least for me personally. But Grey is also a good choice, and Grey is still around and has been voicing Daphne since the early 2000s, so she's also a good source to kind of gauge from. But yeah, I would say that McKenna Grace doesn't really have to do much, because I feel like she has an idea probably of what Daphne is, probably from Scoob. And if she just takes her experience from Scoob and maybe, like, showcases that a little bit more, I think she could do a pretty good job. She has the look down, the question is, can she get the personality down? Can she be the wild card like Daphne is, where she could do a little bit of everything? She could be kind of like Fred and Daphne and be, smart and piece things together and be, a leader and step up when they need to be, but also be a little bit fearful and cowardly and comedic, kind of like Shaggy and Scooby. She's going to be having a closer relationship with Shaggy, so that'll be definitely interesting and something to look out for, towards, like what that relationship might be like. It's definitely an interesting way to start a Scooby Doo origin story. Those two characters are not often portrayed as having a very tight-knit relationship, other than the Scrappy Doo era, where Daphne and Shaggy were pretty close in that era. But yeah, I think McKenna Grace overall doesn't really need too much, advice from me. I would say that as a diehard fan, I would say that she probably gets the character. She has the look down. She probably understands what, Daphne's character is a little bit based off of Scoob. And I guess if she needs, like, a little bit more, to gauge from on what Daphne's character is, I would either suggest that she look back at Heather North's performances or Grey DeLisle's performances to kind of gauge on what, the core essentials of Daphne's personality is. But I would say Daphne's like a bright, bubbly, kind, girly girl, who's the heart of the gang and, is compassionate and cares about everyone and could do a little bit of everything, and isn't really as constrained to a specific role as the rest of the members of the gang. So yeah, I think McKenna Grace, she should be fine. She can do a pretty good job. I don't think she needs much, help on my part. I trust that she can handle things. So that's what I would kind of give to McKenna Grace, on what I think she could do to capture Daphne the best she can in this live-action series. Next on the list is Abby Ryder Fortson, who's been cast in the role of Velma Dinkley. Now, as far as Abby's filmography is concerned, she's been acting since 2013, and the only things I know her from are the two Ant-Man movies, Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2, which was Ant-Man and the Wasp. She played Cassie Lang in those two movies. She did not come back in the third movie because, the third one, Cassie Lang was an older, teenage character, and she wasn't at that age yet. But she played the young Cassie Lang in the first two Ant-Man movies. And for what it's worth, I think she did a good job in those, in those two films. Outside of that, though, I'm not too familiar with her as an actress. Now, as far as what she needs to do for Velma's look is concerned, she's got the brown hair, which is good. Really, it's more so like she's probably going to have to make her hair shorter. I would definitely say that. Velma naturally has shorter hair. So she's definitely going to have, if she wants, to have the look of Velma, shorter hair would probably be good. She can't really be as young and naive as she was with Cassie Lang. Velma is a very smart, perceptive, analytical girl, a bookworm. So she's going to have to be the opposite of that. She's really the opposite of Daphne. So I guess as far as looks is concerned, I think that she probably is going to have to make her hair a little bit shorter. I don't know if they'll, put her in a wig and, she'll just make it short enough that it'll fit under the wig, or if she's going to, make it short enough and style it in a way that, will make her look like Velma. Either way, otherwise, she probably should be okay getting the role, looking like the role of Velma. Obviously, she'll need, the glasses as well. As far as Velma's, characteristics are concerned, her character, the main thing I want to see with Velma is I don't want Velma to be a smug know-it-all like in recent series. I don't want her to be a bitchy, know-it-all, smug person. Velma is not like that. Velma is a very caring friend. She may be smart, but she doesn't show it off. She just naturally is a very bookworm, smart young woman. She's a smart young girl who just, that's naturally how she is. But she doesn't brag about it. She doesn't hate that Fred or even Daphne or Shaggy and Scooby have moments of smartness too. She likes that she has friends that, like to solve mysteries with her. And she enjoys being around her friends. She doesn't hate them, you know, or put them down whenever they try to steal her thunder. So I'm hoping not Fred. I'm hoping Velma will not be a smug, bitchy kind of know-it-all in the series. I'm hoping that she will be, you know, this kind of reserved bookworm, you know, girl who's, you know, very smart, very analytical, pieces clues together, thinks through things, you know, kind of looks at the clues and is like, that's interesting, and kind of has the gears turning in her head. Can be a little bit of a leader too, kind of like Fred. But ultimately, I just want to see her not be as smug and just, you know, allow her friends to be, you know, as smart as her. And welcome it and actually enjoy her friends, you know, joining in on her banter and, you know, being as smart as she is. Like, 'cause she doesn't mind, you know, sharing mysteries with her friends. That's the point. You know, Velma loves solving mysteries with her friends. She loves being around her friends. She doesn't try to upstage people. You know, it's not a competition for her. She may be smart, but that's just naturally her thing. She's just naturally gifted that way. She's naturally smart. She's a smart young woman. So I would say that for me, the main thing I just want to see in terms of characterization for Velma is just don't make it smug and bitchy and kind of like trying to upstage your friends. Have Velma be a kind person who is, you know, just enjoys solving the mystery with her friends, but is just naturally the smartest of the group, just knows how to piece things together, but, you know, can also play off of Fred and Daphne as well when they, you know, start to piece things together. Like, she doesn't get angry or, you know, be like, oh, that's wrong or anything. Like, she's okay with her friends, you know, chiming in and, you know, helping her out. But yeah, otherwise, if she can just show off Velma's bookworm, smart, you know, analytical side and how she pieces the clues together and how the gears turn in her head and be a little bit of a leader here and there, I think overall she could do a pretty decent job. Just don't fall into the pitfalls of recent Velma and be a smug, you know, kind of know-it-all that's being competitive and trying to upstage people. I would say that the Velma, if she wants a Velma actress to gauge from, I would say that go to either Nicole Jaffe's past performances, Pat Stevens' performance are also ones to look at, or Mindy Cohn. One of those three actresses, she could go to any one of them and kind of gauge Velma's, you know, personality traits, her character, and then kind of mold that into her own. So, yeah, I think overall, like, that's what I would do, is that I would just kind of look at those three actresses and get an idea and feel of the character. But also, you know, just don't fall into the pitfalls of the writing of recent Velma. I know she's not really in control of that. You know, obviously that's the writing team. I'm hoping that they won't give her stuff like that and she won't be like the smug kind of, you know-it-all who's, you know, bitchy and doesn't like being upstaged. Hopefully she will be, you know, still a kind friend. Hopefully there will be no infighting. That's a big thing. I don't want to see any drama or infighting or, you know, any sort of romantic, you know, drama whatsoever. I want them to be good, close-knit friends in this series. I don't want them to be arguing a lot. So I would say that for her, physically, all she has to really do is just make her hair a little bit short, wear some glasses, and then have Velma's, you know, normal outfit. But yeah, besides the hair and the glasses, she can probably pull off Velma if she gets physically. And in terms of her character-wise, I would say that just focus on classic Velma. Just focus on how she's, you know, this smart, bookworm, analytical girl who, you know, takes a look at each of these clues, kind of, you know, examines them, kind of like, you know, this is interesting, and pieces them together and kind of gets the full picture. But also showcase that with Fred and Daphne, too. Don't be afraid to shy away from that. Maybe even Shaggy and Scooby, too, because sometimes that happens in the classic series as well, you know. Showcase that she's okay with her friends chiming in, and that she loves solving the mysteries with her friends, in that she loves being around with her friends, and that she's the smartest, not you know, in a competitive way, just naturally. Just show that she's the smartest. She's just naturally the smartest. Kind of like how Fred is naturally the leader due to his personality. Velma's naturally the smartest because of her bookworm, personality, and the fact that she just is very smart has able to piece things together. She just is naturally smart in that way. Don't show it as being natural, not anything competitive or drama focused. So, and as far as, past Velma performances to kind of gauge from on how to best portray Velma, like I said, if she wants to go to Nicole Jaffe's performances, if she wants to go to Pat Stevens or Mindy Cohn, I think any one of those three actresses' performance she can gauge from and kind of get an idea of Velma's performances and what is essential to Velma's character. But that's what I would say in terms of what Abby can do in terms of Velma's character in this series. And the last one on the docket is Tanner Hagen casted in the role of Shaggy Rogers. I'm not going to talk about Frank Welker. Frank Welker's got this in the bag. He knows Scooby left and right. He's been voicing Scooby since the 2000s. I don't need to tell him how to do his job. He's got this. Paul Walter Hausen, I don't know his particular role. I don't know who he's playing. If he is playing Scooby-Doo's real owner, I'm not sure in what capacity, the owner's going to be. I don't know what the owner's personality is going to be like. I also, can't really give him any advice because Scooby-Doo's owner's not really prevalent a lot in previous iterations. Shaggy is mostly known as Scooby's owner, and his best pal. So I can't really give him advice in terms of if that's his role. But I don't really know his role to begin with, so I can't really give him advice on what he needs to do. But he's experienced, so I'm sure he'll be fine enough. Now, as far as Tanner is concerned, I am the least familiar with Tanner. I do not know any single one of his filmography. He's pretty niche. In fact, he's probably the least experienced of this cast. He hasn't really had any big or mainstream roles yet. He's kind of done small little niche things, since I think 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And he seemed to be, from what I gathered, it seemed he might have been, he does have his own YouTube channel, but he hasn't posted in a long time. So he does have that, and he also seemed to be a former actor of Darman. If you guys are familiar with that YouTube channel, Darman is like a YouTube channel that does a lot of, stories and scenarios about teaching lessons. It's often mocked about how stupid and dumb they are, so I don't really care for that channel. I don't watch it, but he seemed to be a former actor from there. He does seem to have a big following, so this definitely is going to be a make or break role for him. Obviously, his big fan base, his following from online will definitely want to tune into the series. But I would say that this is his first major role, and how he does in this role is really going to make or break his career, I would say. Because if he gets this right, if he portrays Shaggy in the best way he can, he will not only go down in Scooby history as one of the best actors to play Shaggy, but he will definitely boost his career in a big way. But if he fucks it up, if he gets it wrong, oh boy, is he not going to be looked down upon. It's good to be on the Casey Kasem, Matthew Lillard side of things rather than the other spectrum. So don't be on the latter half. Don't be like a Billy West or a Scott Menville. Like, be on the right side of, Shaggy's voice actor history. You definitely want to be more of a Casey, Matthew kind of guy. In terms of looks, I think Tanner can pull it off pretty easily. He doesn't have to do much. As long as he has the long shaggy hair, kind of similar to mine. As long as he has, the skinny physique of Shaggy, the goatee, physical, he should be fine. Personality, Shaggy, he'll definitely have to get his humor down. Obviously, that'll be, writing will be a huge factor of it. So, it really will fall in the writing department, but it also will fall on him because I'm hoping he will be naturally funny and be able to deliver them well. How his humor goes will definitely, make or break, Shaggy's character in the series. Also his cowardice, you definitely want to show that off as well. You also want to show off, Shaggy's hunger as well. Obviously Shaggy's, a very hungry person, so you gotta show off his hunger, his humor, his cowardice. But the main big thing that's really going to showcase how good he can be as Shaggy is his relationship with Scooby. Scooby's obviously not going to be real. He's going to be CGI, obviously. So his interactions with Scooby are going to be the main thing. And the rest of the cast are going to have to deal with this, but he's going to have the most time with Scooby. Because Shaggy and Scooby have a natural bond and friendship. They're best friends. They're on screen together almost all the time. So he's going to be with the one with Scooby the most. So he's definitely going to have to really sell his friendship with Shaggy and show off his acting chops. His friendship with Scooby and show off his acting chops. And, kind of make me believe that this dog is real. And make me believe that Shaggy has this really close friendship with this talking dog. So how he acts with Scooby is definitely going to make or break, his, how he, his portrayal of Shaggy, honestly. He's got to, get the friendship, down with Scooby. His, interactions with Scooby are going to be very key. His humor is going to be very important. His cowardice, his hunger. Also, he's got to get the voice right. Shaggy's voice is naturally a very hard voice to tackle. He's kind of like in between a little bit of that high and low pitch. Like there's a little crack. Like Matthew kind of explains it in one of his interviews that there's a little bit of crackle in your voice. And that's kind of where Shaggy is. So if I were him, Casey and Matthew are the two definitive Shaggys that he definitely should be looking at. Casey especially. If he wants a good gauge on what Shaggy really is, he needs to go back to Casey like Matthew did. He doesn't have to do everything Matthew did, but what Matthew did is that he went back to Casey, he looked at his performances, and he essentially just said, okay, this is what Shaggy sounds like, this is what he looks like, how can I integrate myself into Shaggy's character? How can I make this my own while still feeling true to Shaggy? And Matthew did that successfully. He understood the character well. So if Tanner can do that, if he can really be similar to Matthew, where he can look at Casey's performance, maybe even Matthew's performance, and get an idea of Shaggy, and say, okay, what's Shaggy's characteristics? What's his character? How do I get this down? How do I get his voice down? And if he can get it right, then he could really go down in Shaggy, in Scooby Doo history as one of the better Shaggys. So yeah, he's definitely going to have the hardest, job in the series. He's going to have the most to prove because Shaggy is, a huge character, and he's not an easy character to get right. And if you get it wrong, you will be criticized like Scott Menville and Billy West, who are not one of the better Shaggys, or even in Scoob. I didn't really like the Scoob voice actor either. I think it was Will Forte was his name. Will Forte, Scott Menville, Billy West, they're like the lesser, they're kind of like the not-so-great Shaggys. Whereas if you're more like a Scott Innes or a Matthew Lillard or even especially a Casey Kasem, then you could really capture Shaggy's voice well and his mannerisms and characteristics. So he'll definitely, I would say, Matthew's a good source if he wants to, kind of get an idea of Shaggy. Matthew would probably be open to giving him advice if he's willing to. If he wants to gauge from Casey, he's also welcome to do that. I think Casey and Matthew are definitely the best sources in terms of how to best capture Shaggy's personality. But the main thing is in terms of looks, all he has to really do is just get the long shaggy hair, the goatee, and he's got the skinny physique down. So the look he's pretty fine in. I don't think he'll have any problem in the look department. The characterization, though, is going to be key. Can he get the humor down? Can he show Shaggy's cowardice, his hunger? Can he get the voice right, of all things? The voice is very tough to get through. Can he make me believe Shaggy and Scooby's friendship? Capture that friendship. Their dynamic. Scooby's obviously going to be CGI. He's not going to be real. So you're going to have to really capture that. And Matthew did that superbly in the live-action movies. And even, in The Mystery Begins and Curse of the Lake Monster, Nick Pilatus also captured that well, too. So if Tanner Hagen can capture that well in the series, he's going to go a long way in terms of, Scooby-Doo history as one of the better Scooby, the better actors in Scooby-Doo history to voice, to play Shaggy. So Shaggy's definitely the toughest character. I envy him a lot, but I would say my best advice to him is just look to Casey and Matthew. Either maybe get in contact with Matthew if you can, get some advice from him, or go to Casey's performances. Get an idea of Casey's performances as Shaggy. Get an idea of who Shaggy's character is, and essentially, you know, just say, okay, what do I need to do to insert myself into that character and make it my own? So he's definitely going to have the toughest task, but I will be rooting for him. I hope the best for him. He's definitely got the hardest task of the main cast, but if he can get it right, then he's definitely going to be one of the better actors, you know, to play Shaggy. You know, you definitely want to be on the right side in terms of Shaggy's character. And Shaggy's my favorite character, so he's going to have the most to prove in terms of you know, a diehard fan like me. If he can get it right, though, then he'll go a long way in terms of his career and, you know, how he'll go down in Scooby history. So best of luck to him. I wish the best for him. But yeah, just Casey and Matthew are the best sources to go to if you really want a gauge on Shaggy's character. So that's the main cast of the Scooby Doo Origins Netflix live-action series. I think all of them have the potential to be great. I think, you know, I'm rooting for them. I think they can be good. I think as long as they do the right things and don't fall into any previous pitfalls that some modern shows have fallen into, I think they have the potential to be good. A lot of that will hinge on the writing, but also their performances as well. So if they can look and act like the characters and the writing complements them and they're not given some, you know, some massive pitfalls, you know, to, you know, gauge from, like Fred being a dummy or, you know, Daphne being a bratty, spoiled rich girl, which is another thing hopefully they don't do, or Velma being kind of a bit smug and narcissistic and a know-it-all, or not showing Shaggy having the potential to be a bit, you know, smart as well, you know, in certain scenarios. I think as long as they don't fall into those pitfalls, this cast can do a great job. It just all depends on the writing and how they are able to do these performances. But I'll be rooting for them, and I have good expectations for the series. I think the series can be good. I have high hopes for it. I definitely am looking forward to it more than Go-Go Mystery Machine. It sounds promising. Speaking of a little you know, description for the series, here's what Scooby Snacks says in terms of what the description or the short synopsis of the series is at this moment. So it says, during their final summer at camp, old friends Shaggy and Daphne get embroiled in a haunting mystery surrounding a lonely, lost Great Dane puppy that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder. Together with the pragmatic and scientific townie Velma and the strange but ever so handsome new kid Freddy, they set out to solve the case that is pulling each of them into a creepy nightmare that it threatens to expose all of their secrets. So based on the description, it seems like that it'll take place in a summer camp. I don't know if the majority of the first season will take place at a summer camp or if that will just be like a small portion of it. We don't know if the summer camp is in close proximity to their hometown and if they'll be in their hometown at all, or if this will just all take place at their summer camp. Regardless, this does, you know, that's definitely an interesting setting. For, you know, obviously it's not a new type of setting for Scooby-Doo, but a summer camp is definitely a fun and interesting setting for a Scooby-Doo series. It also seems like Shaggy and Daphne are going to have a close relationship in this series, which is definitely an interesting dynamic because while Shaggy and Daphne have a bit of a close relationship in the Scrappy-Doo era, they're not really characters that are often paired that close-knit together. So that's actually pretty interesting that it seems like Shaggy and Daphne are going to have a close relationship in the beginning, and then slowly but surely they're going to find Scooby and then Velma and Fred. So that's definitely an interesting dynamic that I'll be interested how they'll explore that, you know, because that's definitely not a dynamic that is explored often, Daphne and Shaggy's dynamic. It's explored a little bit in the Scrappy-Doo era with the new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, aka the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, and the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. But it's not something you see very often in the Scooby-Doo era. And a little bit of Pop, Daphne, and Shaggy have a bit of a dynamic as well. But for the most part, Daphne and Shaggy don't have a huge dynamic together. So that's definitely an interesting way to start an origin story. And it seems like also that Scooby is going to be like a lost, Great Dane puppy. So it sounds like he's going to be a puppy in this series. So similar to me. I don't know if it'll be like a pup named Scooby-Doo kind of sort of thing where he's going to be, kind of like that and he'll be young. He definitely won't be the normal grown Scooby like in the original series or in most series. He'll be kind of maybe more towards the pup version. And he's going to witness a supernatural murder, which is definitely an interesting thing. So that implies that there will be murder in the show, or at least there will be some type of murder. So I do believe this will be targeted at a teenage audience, but it will not be as graphic as Velma. Thank God for that. I am hoping that, it won't be too prevalent in the show. I'm not a really big fan of murder or, real monsters or ghosts in Scooby-Doo. So that doesn't really bode well for me that this will actually be a murder and might actually be a supernatural one. It does sound like, though, maybe somebody might... It could be a Mystery Begins situation where maybe there is someone behind the mask, but they're controlling ghosts to do their bidding for them. So maybe somebody has a way of controlling the ghost and, having them, murder somebody. Maybe the murder might be fake. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Murder, though, is not something that I definitely want to see in Scooby-Doo. So hopefully it'll be a small aspect, or this will just, it'll just be like a small thing that kickstarts it. I'm hoping it'll still be a man behind the mask or a woman behind the mask. I don't want to see a real supernatural being or a monster or creature. You guys know I'm not really big fans of that. I feel like that takes away the human horror of Scooby-Doo. So if it is, real supernatural, hopefully there will still be some aspect of a man pulling the strings or behind the mask, or a woman. Or, maybe it'll be someone dressed as a ghost that has convincing effects that will use that as a cover to kill someone. I don't know. I don't know the context of this murder. I don't even know if this murder will be a real murder or a fake one. But we'll see how things go. It definitely is... definitely has me hesitant that there will be a little bit of murder, but as long as it's not Velma gore level where it's showcased, infinitely, like as long as it's not, adult level, I feel like as long as it's a tiny bit, I think I can handle it. It's not something I need to see in Scooby-Doo. I don't really need to see that, but if it's just a tiny aspect of it and they still have what I want in a Scooby-Doo formula, then I feel like I can accept it and move on with it. And then it describes Velma as a pragmatic scientific townie and Fred as a strange but ever so handsome new kid. So Velma's description is actually pretty accurate. She's a pragmatic, practical person who doesn't believe in the supernatural and believes there's always a logical explanation. I feel like that fits. She's also very scientific and knows how to do that, so I feel like that fits Velma. I do wonder what the strange aspect of Freddy is. Is it his love of mysteries? Is it his love of traps? Is it something else? It seems like he's a handsome new kid in the camp or the town, wherever they're going to be. But I do wonder what exactly will be strange about him. What will be considered strange about him? Like, will it be strange because he's hanging out with Velma, Daphne, and Shaggy? Is it strange that he likes mysteries? Is it strange that he likes traps? Is it something else? I do wonder what the strange aspect will be like. And it sounds like that they're going to be, Daphne and Shaggy will find Scooby, then they will, get together with Velma and Fred. I don't know if they will know Velma and Fred before that point, before they find Scooby, or if they'll, get to know Fred, Daphne, or if Shaggy, Daphne, and Scooby will get to know Fred and Velma after Scooby has his experience. I am curious how each of them will meet. Obviously, Shaggy and Daphne will be established as close-knit friends in the beginning, and they will meet Scooby. But I do wonder if Velma and Fred will be somewhere in the background where they're maybe noticed but not talked about often, or if, like, they won't be shown until afterwards, and, you know, kind of want to join in because they have a shared love of mysteries as well. And then it ends by saying that they all set out to, you know, solve the case, and it will threaten to expose their, like, secrets. I do wonder what those secrets will be. The gang are not usually secretive about much. They're actually not those kind of people. So I do wonder what the secrets will be. Like, you know, will it be their family members? You know, will it be something else? You know, something in their past that they're not, you know, too fond of? I do wonder what, you know, this supposed, you know, exposure of secrets will be. But that's essentially what, you know, this description is saying. And from what it sounds like Shaggy and Daphne are going to be established friends. Scooby's going to have some original owner. I don't know in what capacity that owner will be playing. It sounds like he will have a regular role in the series. I do wonder if the owner will know Shaggy and Daphne and will give Scooby to them because he trusts them, if he'll have a close-knit relationship with Shaggy, or if he'll be a mean owner or a nice owner. I do wonder what the owner's role will be and how familiar he will be with Shaggy and Daphne and the rest of the gang, and, you know, how Scooby will eventually end up as Shaggy's pet. You know, obviously the main thing is that because this is an origin story, Scooby obviously has to be Shaggy's best friend and pet at some point. So I do wonder, you know, how that will happen. Like, if this owner is having a regular occurrence in the series, I guess he must be at least somewhat close-knit with them, or, you know, will help them in some capacity. Maybe he'll be a mean person. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be a secondary antagonistic force, or if he'll be like a suspect, or if he'll be, you know, a nice person that tries to help the gang or is, like, supportive of Shaggy in the group. I do wonder how that will be. And it sounds like Scooby will witness this supernatural murder, whether it'll be a real murder and a real supernatural occurrence, I don't know. I'm hoping that if it is a real supernatural occurrence that, you know, has a ghost murdering someone, that there will still be someone behind the strings. But I would rather it be someone who looks like a ghost but is not really a ghost and just uses that facade as a way to murder someone. I'm not really a big fan of the murder part. I don't really need that in Scooby-Doo. I'm not really huge on that. But if it's just a tiny aspect of it and just as a way to kickstart the story, then okay, fine, I can deal with it. And then, you know, obviously they'll meet Velma and Fred later. Whether they'll have prior knowledge of Velma and Fred in some capacity, and, you know, what Shaggy and Daphne will think of them before that point is up to debate. Maybe they'll have an idea of them. You know, maybe they won't know each other until some event, you know, gets them closer. I don't know how they're going to meet Fred and Velma, or how they're going to be close-knit and become friends. But obviously Fred and Velma will get embroiled in some capacity. And Velma's characterizations will be similar to her classic characterization, but Fred will have some strangeness, I guess, because he's going to be this new kid in the camp or the town, and he's going to be like this handsome new kid, but I guess he's like a little strange. In what way, I don't know. And, you know, as they solve the case, they're going to, like, have some secrets possibly exposed. I don't know what that will be. I don't know what those secrets might be. So, yeah, there's a bit of to unpack about it, but from what it sounds like, it doesn't sound too bad. It's really just the murder part that's kind of iffy. But like I said, if it's just a small aspect to kickstart the story, I can forgive it. It's just not something I really want to see in Scooby-Doo. And I'm really hoping it's not a real ghost. If it is, I'm still hoping someone will pull the strings, like the mystery begins. I really would prefer someone behind the mask or the costume. I want human horror in Scooby-Doo. I don't want it to be real. So I'm hoping it will not be real ghosts in this show, and will actually just be like someone using that as a facade to murder someone else. Obviously, it's not known if Scooby Doo Origins will be the main title of the series. It could just be a working title, though we don't know. If that is the real title, it doesn't sound too bad. It's quite generic, but it doesn't sound too bad. Obviously, it could change to something else. from what it sounds like, that as far as filming is concerned, it does sound like that they will begin filming in late April, and they will be done by early September. So if we go into that account, I would say that the best case scenario that we could possibly expect a possible release is at best maybe spring, at the latest maybe summer. I think summer is a more real possibility, but I think spring, like maybe April or May-ish, like a year from now, could be possible. But summertime is definitely a safe bet. Obviously, they'll have post-production, so that'll take a bit of time. How fast or how fast it'll be will depend on when this gets released. Hopefully, they'll take their time with Scooby CGI. They don't need to rush it out. Like, do the best you can to get Scooby's details right, and don't try to rush this thing out if it's not ready. So I could expect it maybe April or May. That could be a possible date, but I do think summertime, maybe between June or August, could also be a more realistic date. So somewhere in the spring or summertime next year, I suspect in spring or summer of 2027, we could possibly expect this show to be released in some capacity. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I know this was a different kind of video. I was definitely a more off-the-cuff, rambly kind of video. But, it's not like my usual scripted videos. I didn't feel like that I needed to, do that. We don't really know much about the series yet. So I'm just kind of giving my thoughts and perspective on what it could possibly be, what I think the actors can do, how well I think they can do, these roles. But ultimately, I am looking forward to the series more than Go-Go Mystery Machine. I don't... I'm not downgrading Go-Go Mystery Machine. I'm sure it has potential to be good as well, but the concept for that doesn't fill me as much joy as Scooby Doo Origins. I feel like Scooby Doo Origins has a good chance to be a pretty good series if it does everything right. Obviously, the murder part doesn't really fill me with joy, but like I said, if it's a small aspect, then I feel like it's fine enough. I can move past it. So thanks for, joining me on this different video and joining on this off-the-cuff, rambly kind of video talking about these news. And obviously, if more news comes about in terms of Scooby Doo Origins, I will talk about it, and as well as Go-Go Mystery Machine and any future project. And when the show does come out, I will do each episode, I will give initial thoughts on when they're released. I believe all 8 episodes will be released on the same day, so maybe like each week, like when I'll do like initial thoughts video when it's released, and kind of give my initial thoughts on the episode. But just know that it will not be a proper review. It will not be my normal scripted review. It'll just be kind of my initial first time watching thoughts after going through the episode for the first time. It's obviously down the line I will do a more in-depth scripted video for it, a scripted review for it, but yeah, just know it'll be a more first impressions, kind of initial thoughts kind of video. Not really a proper review when it does come out. But overall, guys, thank you guys for joining me for this different kind of video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you feel free to leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts on this news. What do you think of the Scooby-Doo cast? Are you keen on them? Are you keen on the casting? Are you not? What do you think the cast members can do to capture the characters? Do you have any advice for them on what they can do? How excited are you for this series and the description of it? Are you really excited? Do you have high expectations for it? Do you have low expectations? Do you think it's not going to be great? Are you somewhere in the middle? Which series are you looking forward to more? Are you looking forward to Go-Go Mystery Machine more, or Scooby Doo Origins, or maybe both, or neither? What do you think of this series upcoming? And, what's your thoughts going into it? And obviously, you can subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. Obviously, this is a Scooby-focused channel. I'm a diehard Scooby Doo fan, so I cover all things ranging from the TV shows, movies, video games, and books. I do normal scripted reviews of them. This is something a little bit different, but I don't mind tackling any news or any updates on new projects coming up, because it is exciting. We haven't had any new stuff as of late. It's been a little bit of a dry spell, so I'll be rooting for Scooby Doo Origins and Go-Go Mystery Machine to revitalize the Scooby Doo franchise, because it's been a bit of a down period for as of late. We've been on a little bit of hiatus, and we definitely need something to re-energize the franchise and get this series back to its glory days, because Velma really hurt the brand, and I definitely think Velma really hurt Scooby-Doo's name, and we really need one of these two shows to be good to bring it back up again from that awful, terrible show. So let's hope that one or both of these shows can be good and can deliver us a good Scooby-Doo fun, good Scooby-Doo show that can live up to the Scooby-Doo brand and doesn't tarnish the legacy of Scooby-Doo and respects it and gives it its dues it deserves and does it for the fans and not for, not for people who don't understand Scooby-Doo, and doesn't belittle or downgrade fans, but actually invites fans, but also newcomers and casuals into the show. But I definitely am excited for Scooby Doo Origins, and I'm interested to see what will happen with it. A live action series was inevitable. I don't really think we need live action Scooby Doo. I don't think it's a necessity, but I understand why they do it. Obviously, it's an avenue that they haven't really explored yet, so I completely understand, and I'm open to it. I'm not gonna downgrade it. I think it sounds promising so far, and I think of the two shows, Go-Go Mystery Machine and Scooby Doo Origins, I think Scooby Doo Origins has the potential to be a good show. But if you do want to keep up to date with any news or trailers of Scooby Doo Origins or the Go-Go Mystery Machine that you guys want me to tackle in the future, then obviously subscribe and come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby Doo content. But anyways, guys, I think that's pretty much it. I'll be back with, my usual review series where I essentially will be covering Season 2, Episode 2A of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, Scooby's Desert Dilemma. So if you want to watch that, feel free to do so. That might be uploaded before this video. It might not. I don't know. But I'll be back with my usual review series next. So if you want to join in on that, you're more than welcome to. If you just want to keep up to date with the news, I'll let you know when anything new comes out, or if you want to share anything, when it comes out, then I'd be willing to look at it and see if it's worth talking about. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.